Greetings and welcome back to Season 2 of the Lumbertron podcast. Today's guest is an old friend of mine. We go way back. In fact, I might just owe him a life debt. Elliotte Bagg is an artist who loves to nerd out on what brings him joy. What brings him that joy is movement. Together we nerd out over how great it is to test drive these cars we call bodies, the mindset behind several hours of continuous running, and how being present can be the shift in helping you lay the building blocks to achieving your goals. Seriously, we touch on this whole hierarchy of need things quite a bit. All you need right now, though, is to kick back and listen to our talk. Welcome to the Lumbertron podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for you coming here.
Thanks for having me over here.
Yeah.
In sunny, downtown-ish Kirkland.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful day in February. And I'm here with Elliotte Bagg. Welcome, Elliotte.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Elliotte, I think I'll start with the easy go-to question. Elliotte, who are you? Who are you, Elliotte?
Well, I noticed that when listening to your podcast, is you always lead with
That's
that
just
one.
like always my go-to question, unless I got something else on my mind.
Yeah. I mean, like I was telling you before, I'm a podcast addict.
Yes.
And so I'm geeked out about this. Plus, I like to geek out about a lot of stuff you seem to geek out about, which is like a lot of physical activity stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's very intertwined with mental health and just overall, like, it should be a part of your life at all times, really, as far as like rounding out your mental aspects and your almost spiritual stuff. I'm still like, I've only really gotten hardcore into it in the past year and a half-ish.
It being physical activity in the form of running, things, just like...
I first got into running, but it was mostly like I'd probably max that out about an hour. Mm-hmm. Usually like 30-minute stuff. Was when I first got out of college and I had my first desk job. That's when up until then, I'd been a pretty scrawny kid. Mm-hmm. Probably like 30 pounds less than I weigh now. And then my metabolism just stopped because I had a desk job.
Damn desk jobs.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And on top of that, I was... they had a vending machine where you could buy stuff. Mm-hmm. Or they had a latte or espresso machine where you could just make it for free. Uh-huh. And at the time, I didn't really have a taste for coffee. So I was making the latte, but then I put in tons of creamer. Mm-hmm. I put in whipped cream. And so I was basically having like a caffeinated milkshake every day.
So you're just a scrawny kid running on caffeinated milkshakes.
Yeah. So my metabolism just died. Mm-hmm. And I gained like 35 pounds. I was in the most out of shape portion of my life at that point. Mm-hmm. And then a year or so later, I had gone to a new job. I had a coworker who was going through a similar transformation, except he was like a year or so ahead of me. Mm-hmm. He was the character concept artist on my character art team. Mm-hmm. And so he got me involved in that because him and another one of my coworkers were planning on doing a marathon and we're going full bore into the marathon.
Okay, training. Yeah, so they're really into this whole running thing.
Yeah, and so I started getting more into it, and that's what made me lose most of that weight. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, since then, that was probably 12, 13 years ago, mm-hmm. I've done it pretty consistently, but this last time where I've started really pushing into actually getting that done, because it was kind of I didn't follow through with doing the full marathon at that point, yeah, but I had it on my bucket list.
Got it. So you saw them, they were getting really into running, and you just kind of started dabbling in it with the intention of a marathon. Yeah. Yeah, you saw that and you're like, I want to do that too. Yeah. And so you started running, and what was that like at the beginning, starting out? Was it hard?
It was pretty hard. It hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Like the worst part I had was the shin splints. Like for some reason, I'd never had them before in my life, mm-hmm. and I had been athletic before that. I had done grew up playing soccer and
play sports as a kid.
Yeah. But then just that couple years of being out of shape and not doing a lot of physical activity.
Your body just wasn't ready for that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done real distance running other than, the mile you do in high school.
Yeah.
Occasionally in gym class. But
just the worst.
Yeah. Back then, especially if you're not used to running that, whereas now, like, I just break it down into each mile is 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Because I know you also got into, like, half marathon shape at least?
In 2017, I did do a full marathon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the Tyler Woods Too Cheap to Pay for a Marathon.
Oh, yeah. You found out your own route, right?
That's right. So, yeah, super cool. So 10, 12 years ago, you got into running, didn't quite do the marathon, but you kept up the habit. You just kept up running. And what did that look like? Did you have like a structure in your life? Did you use it for mental health? What did that look like going forward without any sort of marathon looming over you?
I felt like it was just a habit for the longest time,
mm-hmm.
but it wasn't until like a year and a half ago I kind of dipped into some pretty deep, like one of the worst states of depression I ever had.
Yeah.
But then when I started coming out of that and I was learning a lot about mindfulness and I was learning a lot about I guess the overall sense is mindfulness, doing meditation, doing yoga,
mm-hmm.
being more mindful with a lot of my physical activity. Like now I go to the gym, and before when I wasn't really mindful, I was just doing a lot of the fixed machines and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I thought, oh yeah, you just use this bench press machine.
Just doing what people do and then just doing all the machines, right?
Yeah, but the machines are like all the restricted machines where you're only working.
There are the fixed range of motion for one body part and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I had stuck with those for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, around the time I was getting over this depression, I was also noticing my shoulder was getting in a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I would do like push-ups, like trying to max push-ups with one of my coworkers. This crazy Latvian named Dietzis. And but I noticed my shoulder was getting worse and worse, and then I ended up going to physical therapy for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really started getting into, okay, I need to be mindful about like the technique going into it, how I'm moving my body. Before it just felt like going through the motions, versus now I actually really concentrate on getting the form perfect.
Everything, So you got basically essentially an injury, and you went to PT for it, and that really opened your eyes to everything behind the movement, the reason, the form.
Yeah, and specifically with jogging, it made me. It brought me onto a lot of injuries that were like slowly building up over time when it came to jogging as well.
Yeah.
Because at the same place, they do a gait check where you get on a treadmill and they record you.
They bring up some red lights for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was having this bad pronation, and I even posted a picture or a video on Instagram where like it looked like someone had taken a saw or like a knife to my
inside of the shoe.
Yeah, because I was pronating so badly I'd worn it down that way. Like one side an inch was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was leading to like my hamstrings. I'm still trying to get completely out there, trying to get completely flexible again, where I can just have it completely straight.
Yeah.
It was really taking a pounding on my calves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of just learning, okay, here's what I can do to prevent myself from really getting injured and out of the game later on.
Yeah.
And also it was just like slow build up of.
So it sounds like this PT trip was like a really big like milestone in your learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was with that and with the mindfulness, that just approaching everything a bit more, like recognizing how even though you're working one part of your body, it's affecting so many other
the whole
parts of your
system
body.
being interconnected. And yeah.
Like when I was getting more into deadlifts as well with a barbell, it's called the posterior chain.
Yeah, the whole backside, the whole system.
Yeah, and I even realized there was many times before, like when I was going to the gym or whatnot, and they were always lecturing me about form, but there were some muscle groups of mine, like I had most of the aesthetic vanity muscles. Those were the ones I was going for my chest.
But all the other stuff was weak and not quite up to that same level.
Yeah, like all the stabilizer stuff. And so I would just have trainers like constantly chastising me about my form when it came to squats or when it came to deadlifts. And I realized later I wasn't able to do what they wanted because some of my muscles, like my glutes, which I completely neglected, just weren't even activating.
Yeah.
So
I hear you. I've had the same problem. It's like, my glutes are fine. I do all this running. What's the problem? And then a PT sits me down and I do like a sideways leg lift. And it's like, why does that burn so much?
Yeah.
Exactly. All those little muscles in there.
Yeah.
So after you learned all this stuff, what changed for you going to this PT clinic and learning about form? When you came back into running, what was new?
Well, the big part was they got me an insert. They got me an insole for where I was pronating. And that took it kind of dipped my performance and then brought it back up once I was like, okay, now my form is better.
Yeah.
Whereas before, like my right leg would be kind of sliding to the side. So there was that, and in general it just made me a lot more aware of how sitting at a desk is so bad for you.
Yes. So
nowadays I do yoga 3 to 4 times a week too, just to keep myself mobile. And like at work I'll do or the same dude I was doing push-ups with, I would do planks.
Yeah.
Just kind of to break up the day and to like shake our, get active a bit more.
Yeah. Contrast the contraction with some expansion, some.
Yeah, I feel like that's the biggest component to what I've been doing in fitness is just like going from really hunched over. And I feel like tall people in particular tend to hunch over because we want to be on eye level with you when we're talking. But at the same time, I'm sure that fed a lot into like social anxiety, and when I was feeling a bit more depressed, I feel like the mindfulness brought out like, okay, things aren't always going to be great. Things are going to be uncomfortable sometimes. Rather than trying to avoid it or get away from it, I was more like, you got to kind of open yourself up to it.
Interesting. Let's go back to that. How did you get into mindfulness? How did you find that? That sounds like it really has been a powerful piece for you.
One part of it was I went to a therapist around the time I was having a lot of depression, and she recommended mindfulness in general, but also there was one book called, I think it was using cognitive behavioral therapy, and it was called The Happiness Trap. And it has a lot of mindfulness parallels, but I also read what's his name, Dan Harris's book, the guy who does meditation, who had like a panic attack he's like a national news anchor, and he has like his own app now that he does, but he's had several books on it.
Okay.
And a lot of what he was talking about with how much just anxiety you feel constantly throughout the day. Part of it was the parallel that he had a very creative niche career where he's on Good Morning America on ABC, or he'll do the evening news. But he'd have this worry, just like I do with a creative job, is like, it's kind of the imposter syndrome almost, where you're just like, this could all go away.
It could all go away at any second.
Yeah.
They don't really.
What the hell do I do?
Yeah.
I don't have formal training in something much more practical, like engineering or plumbing or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I would have to relearn quite a bit. So he talks a lot about wrestling with that fear and how in the past he would avoid it, where he would
And you resonated with that. Do you feel like you were kind of having the same pattern in your life and having that anxiety and avoiding it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to our past where I would host those parties, I felt like a lot of my 20s was, on the one hand, positively white knuckling it with jogging.
Okay, so you had this positive thing.
Yeah, but also the negative was like parties, and anytime I would feel socially awkward, why not just have some shots or something like that?
Yeah, use alcohol as a way to just kind of make it all feel okay.
Might help in that moment, but then you're hungover and waste the whole next day or whatever, or you make an ass of yourself or do something like that. So.
Yeah. Those parties were an important cornerstone because you are a matchmaker. You did, in fact, because of you, I met my wife, and many other people have met amazing humans through your parties.
I like to take more than enough credit for that.
Yeah.
I like to be like, yeah, you guys are where you're at because of me.
Because of this guy right here. Only because of Elliotte.
I think there's about 5 couples that got married because of meeting at those little parties I used to have. I mean, they got pretty big for a while, but yeah.
And you did those despite the anxiety, because of anxiety, in the face of anxiety. I mean, a lot
of it was the alcohol helping out.
Yeah.
Part of it was I was sort of 50-50 between, being in your 20s, being social, doing a lot of partying and socializing, versus also I was part-time dad because I had my son at 23 and then
part-time adult. Part-time.
It was almost it was me kind of reacting in the opposite direction from my parental responsibilities.
Interesting. This is like, no, I don't want this, and just going completely the opposite spectrum, trying to party hard.
Or just have both, because in your 20s you're so much of that is just learning who the hell you are as an adult, and so on the one hand I'm learning to be an adult really fast by having a kid, and the other thing was going in the opposite direction and being wild and
having the youthful experience, the craziness. I
feel like I was also not really a partier in high school and just barely started to after college. I went to a small art school, so it wasn't like party college. It was a lot of awkward nerds like us, but we made do. But
just get that all out afterwards and just have the experience. So by finding this mindfulness practice, you're able to kind of focus back in on yourself and kind of touch on those things you may have been avoiding before. And what did that look like for you? What did you use in your own life to be mindful? How did that look?
Yoga was a big one, as far as the being mindful and physical. And that's actually a good point about like noticing as I got more physical and mindful about it, the more it also, like a lot of yoga instructors talk about how it kind of brings out some random emotions. And I get that kind of emotional release from jogging, I've felt as well. It's not just the runner's high.
Coming back to yourself and being able to feel and process all your emotions while you're running.
They bubble to the surface, just like, just like you're sweating out everything, just like you're, like in the case of my gunky throat, that comes out.
Elliotte does not always sound like a gravelly badass.
I wish there was a healthy way to have like a badass voice, but only temporarily. But it's like, the one thing I really noticed the other week was when I got to like 20 plus miles, part of it was I got to this one point, I'm still figuring out my route. And I decided to go up this one way along, the Houghton neighborhood. I don't know how familiar you are on there, but it's a fairly long, like a mile or so, pretty steady uphill part. And it was towards the end. And usually I feel like I go through this kind of arc of feelings when I'm going through like a 3 or so hour run, where it goes from like you have this like nice energized runner's high, then you get a bit of exhaustion and you're starting to like I started thinking of myself as my body is my vehicle, right? So when I'm at that point where I'm kind of peaked past my highest energy level, I'm more like I think of it like the old sci-fi sim games I'd play as a kid, the PC games like Wing Commander and whatnot.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're regulating your breath and then you have to monitor different systems. In those games, it was like shields versus engines versus your guns and whatnot.
All the different dice rolling things all put into different systems. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it kind of came to running, it was like I got to regulate my breathing. Breathe more through your nose. Mm-hmm. So you're getting more oxygenated. I think that's the word. Mm-hmm. Regulating my gait. I use like this for following my cadence. Mm-hmm. So the strides per minute. So
at a certain point, as you get more fatigued, it becomes more technical.
Yeah.
You find different aspects. It sounds like more mindful. You're like cued into your body and doing more things.
Yeah, I feel like at the beginning you have some of that initial momentum as you start to hit your stride of like, oh, I feel energized, I feel good, and then it starts to slowly, fatigue starts to set in a little bit. Things start to go down a little bit. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. And so I am more actively gauging breathing, technique, all the stats,
all the things,
sort of thing, in order to prolong that as much as possible. But to get to that, what I was saying before, when I did that really hard uphill, I was past that point of fatigue where I was just like, then I was getting this emotion bubbling up, which is just like, I was just like pure rage. I was like using that rage because my body otherwise would completely stop.
And was that rage pointing at anything? Was that just like from something inside you? Was it at the hill? I mean, just like it just came to the surface.
I feel like it's one of those, like we all have those deeply innate emotions.
Yeah.
That a lot of times we normally in everyday wouldn't be able to express.
Doesn't always get touched on.
So I still have like a little bit of rage. Like I grew up in kind of a hostile environment with my parents dealing with their mental illnesses and whatnot. So I feel like that's always been kind of there. But then in this case, I was just fueling that towards fuck you,
able to
my
just
body.
Touch that and use it as fuel.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So
that's
it's
cool.
kind of like, I always feel like after those long runs, and I'm sure you're aware of this too, is like you're probably at the most chill you could possibly be.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I usually put it as a zonked. It's a little bit past chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's the physical exhaustion, but I feel like at least for that, next couple days, I would say, I feel like the most release from anxiety, the most release from worrying thoughts or that sort of thing.
So the long runs actually have a multi-day benefit for you, like mentally as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty addictive.
Yeah, that's a good feedback loop in my judgment. So now you sound like you're getting pretty hardcore, 20 plus miles. So you finally got a marathon in your future?
Yeah, the one thing I realized after doing the 24 miles this past weekend was I just need to get one of those hydration or camelbacks, one of those backpacks that you could just sip on water.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty dicey by like the last 3 miles. The last 3 miles I was like slapping myself because I was feeling like I might get a little pass outy.
Did you run with anything? You have any fuel and water?
The funny thing is if you do it just right where you prep and you have the right amount of nutrients, the right meal beforehand, you feel like you can coast quite a bit longer. This time I wasn't quite hitting that. So I realized I need something to fuel me while I'm running as well, just to ensure that I can hit that amount of miles.
Have you practiced that before? Running and eating at the same time?
Not eating.
Yeah. Or, it's not necessarily like food, but, like I took maple syrup.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I had a little bottle of, I had gotten it for Christmas, and it was a glass bottle shaped like a maple leaf filled with maple syrup, and I took a shot of that. And,
as you were talking?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
I use... I mentioned Joe Rogan before. He had on this ultra marathon runner who did like the 240 marathon in Montana or something. No, I think it was Idaho.
Okay.
She completely destroyed the competition. She finished 18 hours before anyone else did. And so I was like,
sweet. Oh my God.
Yeah. And she was like, I forget her name, but she was like the embodiment of what I'm talking about. Like, she was the most chill, zenned out person you could possibly meet. But she recommended this one thing that's also made in Colorado. It's called Tailwind. It's like just one of those drink mixes.
Gotcha. It's just a drink with glucose and stuff in it, so you can just drip feed it. Yeah.
So I usually start with that. A lot easier than
chewing on anything.
Yeah. And that gets me going, so that's what I figure I'll just put in with my Camelback.
Yeah, there you go.
And I hope to not fail when it comes to the first official marathon and when I do the Whidbey Island one.
Whidbey Island. Okay.
Yeah.
And when's that coming up?
It's April 19th.
April 19th.
It's going to be
super
interesting.
Cool. So where has your training plan come from? Do you have a training plan? Have you just been making it up as you go?
Kind of. I've mostly been going for personal records.
Yeah, just every long run longer.
Yeah. And besides having the bucket list in the back of my head, as far as like eventually I want to get there.
Yeah.
And so once I just started building, I think every personal record I usually do 2 miles more. So that's another 20-ish minutes of running.
And then as it got closer, you're just like, oh, this is almost a marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, I really started pursuing it probably this time last year, about February. And that's when I started pushing it to a little bit more. And it's been helpful all around.
That's cool. Do you find you're running, do you run more in different seasons? Do you have a particular season that you like to run more in? I'd say the winter.
Yeah, I'd say the worst season for me is actually if it's the super hot days during the summer. Like where it's just like, I'm going to melt. All the liquid's going to come out of my body. I'm just going to be...
Do you usually run during the day?
During the summer, I'd usually do early morning.
Yeah.
It's funny, I had one time where I also started waking up earlier. How they started talking about like you should wake up 4:35, somewhere around there, and get started with the day rather than staying up super late. And I've mostly shifted my days to that. And this last summer, I was running in the early morning, and there was a bat flying right at me on the sidewalk. Or no, it came out of the woods, and then it just
turned and went right for you.
And then we both did like where we just kind of rotated around each other on the sidewalk and let each other go on our own ways. And I was like, all right, that just happened.
Okay, obstacles.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, it's definitely shifted my day and night cycle quite a bit. Just like with all this other stuff we're talking about when it comes to physical activity, it's also about improving your diet and getting enough sleep is a big one.
Yeah, sleep, nutrition, that's all part of the greater picture of just, it's not just pounding yourself into the pavement 1 mile longer than it is the next time. So how do you take care of yourself from a nutritional standpoint? How do you recover from these runs? Do you find yourself really, really fatigued that day after a long run? What's it like for you?
I definitely try to get some carbs back in my system, so getting the neurons firing again, so I don't
wake yourself up.
Yeah, try to get a lot of protein at that point to rebuild, and a lot of hydration.
Lots of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just have like a huge meal right afterwards.
Just immediately afterwards, and
Yeah.
just relax, just be chill, and embrace the feeling. Yeah.
Try to kick back and relax with that.
That's cool.
And then if I'm not too full, excuse me, I try to. I have a number of like yoga instructors on YouTube. I'll just do it right here.
Yeah, just like cool down and stretch everything out.
And usually, if I'm disciplined about that, then I'm not sore for the next couple of days.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Correlation, causation, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Have you found any other exercise modalities that have helped your running? Like, have you found weight training to train certain parts of yourself for running?
Yeah.
Yoga for cooling down and recovery?
I'm trying to think of what is the most direct benefit. I'm not sure. Probably most definitely the yoga, as far as like keeping myself limber, just in general.
Yeah.
Like, especially having a sedentary job, you got to be like keeping your body mobile. Otherwise, you're just gonna collapse in on yourself.
Yeah, our modern society is really good at returning everyone back to the fetal position, just eyes and hands hunched over into just kind of this. So.
Yeah, I learned today the guy who holds the new world record for planking, he's like...
is really cool.
He's 62 years old. He's like a former Marine.
Okay.
And he did it for just over 8 hours.
Good for him.
And so I'm like, I'd rather be... Going back to my analogy where I view my body as kind of the vehicle for this life, is you got to maintain it.
Yeah.
You got to keep it going. And I visualize that between like a well-oiled, well-maintained car that even, you could have a 1950s car that's still in great shape. Or you could have a car that's like kind of the redneck stereotype where they left it on the lawn and it's just overgrown with stuff. Like you could end up one way or the other, and I know which way I want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is like the recent Super Bowl halftime show has J-Lo, who's 50, and Shakira, who's 43, and they're both in amazing shape doing,
pole dancing, freaking killing it.
Whatever witchcraft Shakira's doing with her hips, she's still doing that amazingly at 43.
Yeah.
I don't have any excuse to let my body go when I could still be in great shape. I could still be doing hour-long planks in my 60s or whatnot. Or I'm not sure who the oldest guy is, but I know there's at least one guy out of India who was doing marathons at 100. So it's like, I feel like your body also exponentially breaks down more over time. But
there's a level of buffer you can give yourself. Yeah. Self-care. And
I mean, overall, I think, and this is my theory about it, I feel like physical activity, because it's been so hardwired into us, that when we don't get it, we're not satisfying one of our needs. Like one of our primal needs is we need to keep moving. And you see that in how sedentary work life really breaks your body down pretty quickly. Versus like having a challenge. And I noticed that too with, I was actually reading a book about kind of the history of marriages. But it talked about, Maslow's pyramid of needs.
Yeah, the hierarchy of needs.
And he talked about, towards the top, you get to self-actualization, but he talked a lot about, I think it's less about prestige, but more about the mastery aspect. But at the same time, when it comes to mastering something physical, you're kind of fulfilling quite a few needs up and down the pyramid. Even when it comes to your like most basic needs, is you need to be healthy. Yeah. So that should include physical activity.
So movement.
So And I try to bring that out with, like, I've always been kind of a armchair psychologist, or more of a just someone who really nerds out about that as well.
Just being excited about the mind and
yeah.
Okay.
And so I would look at it. For the longest time, I would stress out a lot about my career path as far as, like, being an awesome artist and getting to the levels I want. And you see out there the amazing artists who are just, like, godlike in their abilities. But the more and more I looked into and read about books about, you know, these breakout talents, whether it's the tech industry or famous athletes or famous whatever, is so much of that was what people would call talent, or you were born with it. It's mostly just about your working attitude, your work ethic of getting through difficult things and not shying away from that.
Yeah.
So
how did that change how you viewed those artists, that talent, in your own career? How did that change after realizing that?
When it comes to career, I'm much more about, like, I'm more of a lead, so I'm more about that psychological thing when it comes to relationships, and when it comes to I have to pitch the art I do. Whenever we at my company, you just work through kind of the entire process. You don't have a bunch of people on an assembly line. It's a lot of, you have to be more of a generalist where you design, then you implement.
Everyone just doing the entire spectrum of the...
Yeah. So a lot of it was building up more that interpersonal relationship with my team members and being able to better sell them on designs I wanted to get in the game. So, but when it comes to, like, my personal art, that was where I felt like I was incredibly lacking. Like, I would have difficulty a lot of times where I just wasn't someone who was able to sit down, focus on just doing this one thing. I would still kind of view it as work, or kind of view it as an obligation or something like that. But really it was me shying away from the challenge of it. Shying away from, you know, this is difficult. The problem being, you know, your expectations
bar just so high, and you want to get there, and in this moment it's hard.
Yeah.
And
so
then,
you gotta, like with anything, there'll be a lot of different talents you'll see people do, and they make it look completely easy, like it's completely off the cuff, but it's really because of that, you know, 10,000 hours or whatnot.
Yeah, there's the learning zones, zone 1 learning. I suck at this, I can't do it. And they're up in zone 3 where it's just effortless. They're just like, I've been here, I've done the repetitions, I know how to do this stuff.
It's built into it's literally physically changed my brain. Yeah. Like, it's activated this different part and carved pathways that now make that such an automatic process because of that buildup. And so that's where I'm like, nowadays I spend more time doing that as a habit of getting on the computer and drawing and whatnot. And like I said before, I feel like the two of them go hand in hand, that and physical activity. Yeah. Using the creative side, nurturing those brain neural pathways, and then using the physical activity. You're still growing neural pathways. Your neuroplasticity is still doing its thing. Yeah. But you're teaching yourself how to move and be a human instead of sit. Yes. And it's the same metaphor, whether it's your brain or it's your body. Like, if you are continuing to challenge yourself and adapt and build up to something, you know, one up yourself day after day, like, then you're gonna, you know, I'll reach those mastery levels when it comes to drawing in 10 years. I'll be reaching that marathon here real soon, that sort of thing. Yeah, you just laying the bricks now. Yeah. Laying the bricks for that pyramid. Exactly. Yes. Super cool. Yeah.
So I guess the question would be, well, what's next for Elliotte? But we all know what's next. It's a marathon. That's what's next.
And you saw that conversation I was having with Marcus once I was posting that stuff up too, was like, there'll be people who say they can't run. And
can't run.
In some cases, you have a physical disability or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But other times it's more like, yeah, you just got to start laying those bricks.
Yeah. The voice of I can't, or I shouldn't, or it's bad, or I'm bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just getting over that voice.
Yeah. These days I just try to... It's also, you have to realize, like, you have to narrow your vision to what you want to spend your time on. Nowadays you can just get caught up in all the distractions and just be like looking at your phone or scrolling through memes or whatever else, and I've done plenty of that. But yeah. But at the same time, like, you want to build something that builds upon itself and makes you look back a year from now and be like, oh yeah, I've been building on that and I've achieved this great thing.
That year will go by whether you want it to or not, and it's just like, where are you spending your time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think anxiety in particular, like, keeps you in your comfort zone. And even though your comfort zone feels good, and like, I'd be like, get myself addicted to games or get myself addicted to distractions. Like, I got addicted to books one year and read like 80 books or so. And on the one hand, I've learned a lot of cool stuff from them. But also, like, it doesn't necessarily give me a whole new mastery or a whole new skill set.
It didn't necessarily enrich your life to a level that you could take out into change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, I know some great facts.
Yeah.
Trivia.
Yeah. Or I'd be really good at starting to write novels if I wanted to write novels, but I'm more of a visual artist. But I definitely... On the one hand, I like distractions, but I've also narrowed down what distractions are in my life versus what are the things I want to spend.
You're really being more mindful about your distractions.
Yeah. Boom. Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm more working towards things I'm building up towards. So.
I do believe that's called the growth mindset.
Exactly. It's very true.
You may just have it. So what's going to happen after you achieve your marathon goal?
That's what I'm wondering about. I don't know how long I'll stick with the marathon game.
Yeah.
I don't see myself becoming like a ultra marathon runner. But, yeah, I don't know. What did you do?
You think running will always be a place in your life?
It'll always have a place.
Yeah.
Probably won't be spending like 4+ hours on weekends every weekend for the rest of my life. But, yeah, how'd you get over that bug?
After I ran the marathon, the next summer coming around, and I just kind of did the distance thing, not with a goal in mind, and I got up to another like 22 miles. Then that November, I signed up for an ultra, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. And then like halfway through the year, I was like, what the hell am I doing? This hurts and it sucks. And so I'm just like, I'm done.
So ultra was going to be 100 or?
No, an ultra is technically anything more than a marathon. So it was like a 30 miler. So
yeah. I think that's 50K.
50K. Yeah, it was the Squamish 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ended up going up to Squamish and seeing a lot of the people finishing the race, and it was bittersweet, seeing those poor souls.
So you signed up, but then you went there just to watch.
So I'd signed up for the race and booked an Airbnb to stay up there because it's Squamish, and so I dropped out of the race, got the refund for that, but still had the Airbnb because it was for my birthday weekend. So I was like, let's go check out Squamish.
Nice.
So small town, could see the people run through. It was not hard to miss.
Yeah.
They all look like death.
Yeah. That's definitely the thing, is like the marathon's kind of the arbitrary goal.
Yeah.
But then do you get way more hardcore with that, or do you just like...
There's plenty of ways to mix it up. Have you done trail running before?
I semi do that, like with my current ones, but it's the Cross Kirkland Trail, but it's not a mountain. A forest trail. So, yeah, coming up with some
Give
sort
it a try
of
sometime.
Yeah,
That's an
give
idea.
that a try. Some little bits to kind of tweak the formula with what I have going on.
There you go. Your body will tell you. You'll have an answer in the future.
Yeah.
It's not yet.
I have a
Don't
lot
need to
more
worry about
growth when it comes to a lot of the stuff I saw you got hardcore into with well, I don't know if you call it bodybuilding, but strength training. As far as getting into a lot of the more subtle tweaks for that, like my deadlifts form is all right, but I'm still not very high when it comes to weight. Same with my squat. I just started practicing with. I think you were doing the hanging stuff.
Just hanging around. Hanging's great for the shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's supposed to help. That will probably help with my shoulder quite a bit.
I bet. Yeah.
Because when I was going through the motions and not being mindful, I was like kind of angling my shoulder
benching
like
out
this.
here. Just, yeah. Oof.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't have all, I don't know, the latissimus or whatever, the back shoulder blade muscles, the stabilizer muscles, because I was doing all that stuff through those restricted machines. But just getting a lot more into that. I also want to try out what seems to work really great is calisthenics. I don't know if you got fully into those.
Just do bodyweight exercise wherever you want.
Yeah. I want to get more into that because that seems to be very beneficial overall with balance and whatnot. Like I'm slowly getting more flexible and a bit better balanced, but the more you can do that, the more comfortable you can feel doing stuff in your body. I feel like the better.
The better the vessel, maybe the smoother the sail, and the sea of life.
Yeah, I mean, I bet that was a huge motivator for you too, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, the more I can do, the more I find out that I can do, and it's just exponential. And it's like, oh, I really want to try out this cool thing. Yeah.
So it's kind of like now you have this smorgasbord of activities you want to do with. Like, I always liken it to when you're a role-playing game or whatnot.
Yeah.
Or a Metroid game where you're just like, you got this new ability and you're like...
Now that I've come back here and I know how to double jump, I can finally...
The double jump is the hard one.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. I think it'll just be a matter of, like, I want to also eventually get back to jiu-jitsu, and I feel like... The last time I was doing it was right before my daughter was born, and that was when I was less mindful. And coincidentally, one of the one exercise the teacher, I guess you could call him sensei. I don't think he goes by that in jiu-jitsu, but he said the main activity you should focus on besides this, in order to improve jiu-jitsu, is yoga. Because it keeps you flexible and it is a mindfulness activity, and so much of like being comfortable with complex movements with your body, and especially with when you're competing against someone else doing that, that's what he was a huge advocate of.
Yeah, being present.
Yeah, so I eventually want to get back to that because that's a super fun activity.
Nice.
So there was a certain point where I was just like, I was kind of weekend warrioring it, but then there's the people that are hardcore. Like we had a couple people who were winning like world championships, and
wow,
or sometimes people from, it was Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so sometimes they would have jiu-jitsu schools from Brazil come up, and you'd have like the super hardcore men and women who were like tattooed in their face and whatnot. It's like, that person's just gonna destroy me.
When they have face tattoos, you know you're in for something.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad enough, and it was very humbling because I had one of the instructors there had been going there for like 14 years. He was super, obviously very in tune with all the technique, because he was probably 8 inches shorter than me, probably 80 pounds less than me, and he would just wrap me up and choke me out.
Oh yeah, the height differential, the weight differential, when it comes to skill like that, it usually doesn't even matter. It's just like, they know what they're doing.
I was choked out so many times by that guy.
Wow.
That I was just like, it makes you very humble in life in general, because also jiu-jitsu doesn't really have like a specific body type. like, it's one of the most famous martial arts where you can watch videos of, like, skilled women at it who are just beating the crap out of dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there was one Brazilian jiu-jitsu lady who a mugger tried to mug her. She was in Rio. Mm-hmm. Obviously, mugger's trying to mug her, and she ended up like getting
and he
him
got
in
wrecked.
a chokehold, and was like crying for his mom as she was like patiently waiting on top of him for the police to show up.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, I want to get back into it. I want to teach I want my daughter to learn it as well, because then, like, I don't have to be as intimidating a father when it comes to she gets to being dating age. It'll just be like, I'll just tell whatever dates that show up at her door, like, you better treat her right, or she's just
here's
gonna
the belts
wrap you
and
up.
here's the medals that she has.
Yeah.
Well, just be known that she can be a lethal weapon.
I mean, she definitely already has that attitude, but like, just being able to have that physical control, not only with physical activity, but also like handling yourself around someone who might be hostile. It both chills you out quite a bit from the anxiety of being attacked, but it's also just builds confidence, like all this other hard work stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah, and is that something you definitely want to pass on to your daughter? Confidence, physical autonomy.
I'm trying to do it with more with my son as well, but he's a bit more of the he's 13 now, so he's a bit more, especially now at this age, to be like, yeah, whatever, Dad. So
of course,
I
into the teens.
Yeah, so sometimes it goes bribery, and sometimes it's just me like making him do stuff. But I hope to pass it on to both of them, and I hope, like, I just want to live as that example. Or take inspiration from other people living like that example, like you, when it comes to just getting a lot of shit together.
Just getting shit together and being a human.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's overall, like, the growth mindset is more like, and I'm still working on the times where, like, you see someone in your life, or you have to interact with someone who's very much the opposite of that, very much like kind of coasting and doing the minimal,
the escapism, the distraction.
And you're like,
and so what does that bring up for you when you see that now?
Initially I get judgmental, but then I always realize, like, that's just my fear talking about I could easily be that, or I've had so many times in my life where
you've been there, you don't want to be there again.
Yeah. So
it's scary. And just like I want to, like, I don't want to get preachy. I don't want to be judgy. It's just like, that's just where they're at.
Well,
you can be a resource if you want to.
Ultimately, I can't. If I'm the one to be preachy about that, I better be able to back it up. But I try not to back it up by preaching about it. I just living your best life is exactly. Just living it. Like, the reason why I post those things of my sweaty face after runs is because I have this other coworker who's pretty into running. He's not as much distance running, but he's like super fast. He does like 7-minute miles for like 5 miles on his way to work, and he would just post. He would post the same thing. He would post a picture of his sweaty face, and talk a little bit about, oh yeah, today was extra cold, so I was a bit slower. But it's those, I guess that's what I like about, that's the positive stuff I like to see on social media, is like when people are struggling, but they're showing, hey, I'm doing it, I'm sticking with it. I like that a lot more than, people going off on their soapboxes about politics or whatever else. Or it's just like, yeah,
I hear that.
Just showing you guys what I'm doing. I'm doing something cool that takes some skill.
Building a skill, doing something cool. Yeah, just living your life.
Yeah.
That's a good way to use social media.
Yeah, and like I said,
way to share.
I think I've really opened my eyes to a lot more things just even in the past year, and I'm only a year into it, so I'm excited because you've been at it for how many years now, where you just Do you feel like you shifted from kind of going through the motions of life as part of it?
Well, if we're going to get into life and the way I experience things now, it's definitely been like a steep learning curve of just, like becoming an adult after college, floundering and trying to figure my way and get a career, losing weight and becoming familiar with physical autonomy, being excited about that, thinking I had it all figured out, and then losing that physical autonomy after surgery and rebuilding that, realizing while I was working on all of that I didn't have any friends, finally working on the whole mindset part, the emotions, the connecting with others. And just like you said, I've only been doing this for a year and I'm really excited. I feel like the same way. I've only been like this podcast thing I started last year, and this is just another way for me to be on that growth mindset, to do something that's outside of my comfort zone, to just do something new. So it's
my hat's off as
it's
far
just
as
a new thing.
I feel like a huge one for me, like anxiety these days especially, is very much about social interactions too. And that's probably why so much of us love podcasts, because it's this long form, deep conversation.
Yeah.
And you get to just sit there and enjoy that, but then it's not a substitute for kind of our primal need as social creatures. And if you don't have those connecting moments with other people in your life, that's like the lower half of Maslow's.
Exactly. It's all coming back to the pyramid. I think I think we have a theme here.
Yeah.
That's the biggest takeaway I think I've learned from like doing the work, whatever that means, these past few years, of just like, I have needs. One of my needs is for connection and interaction, and I didn't have that for the longest time. I was just kind of like working on everything else, and then just like, let's become a fully fledged, rounded human now.
Yeah, and that's why we keep coming back to like all these themes, because they're so interconnected. And it's like, oh, I'm nerding out because this connects to this, or this helps here, or It's
just like your gait and the whole rest of your body with running. It's all one big interconnected piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to nerd out about.
It's fun to nerd out.
I sometimes nerd out a bit too much. Some people are just like, okay, why are you talking to me about this so much? But
now, when you say nerd out, so is it a negative connotation in your head when you say I'm nerding out? You feel like you're putting others off by being excited about something?
No.
You say you nerd out too much. What does that mean?
Nerd out too much, I guess, more in the sense that like I'll nerd out and not be socially aware of like whether the person is like wanting to nerd out too.
Did they ask for this?
Yeah. I definitely don't like nerding out about stuff. That's just what we all do. Like, even though recently nerdy stuff has become pop culture.
Yes, it's nerds are in.
I feel like, the parallels have been made between like a hardcore nerd versus how hardcore a sports fan is, or
it's talking shop.
Yeah.
It's just talking about like passion.
Yeah, it's talking about something you're passionate about or something you're skilled at.
Yeah.
Like, when I've looked up for techniques on weightlifting online, all the YouTube ones that are decent and sticking with it are the ones who are. They're just nerding out.
They're nerding out about bro stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, just like nerd out about a comic book series or a sci-fi show or whatnot. We're all just nerding out about what we're passionate about.
Yeah, sharing the people who share the biggest passions is just like that's what fires me up these days. Like, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And just like getting a little bit of that secondhand, just like, yes, touching on that feeling. It's just a big source of joy. A big source of joy for me.
Would you kind of theme this podcast after just like, I know this person's really passionate about these parts of their life, so I'm going to have a conversation with them?
You know, it's starting to become that. And before it started out like kind of just like a curiosity of like, I wonder what your life is like.
Yeah.
Or just like I don't know a lot about this person.
Mm-hmm.
What if I actually sat down and talked with them? And so, yeah, now it's just like that's been a theme, I think. It was just like, oh, I see you're really passionate about this thing. Tell me about this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
I'm gonna check it out.
there
more.
it is. Wow. Somehow this is all going to tie back to pyramids, and we're going to have a great name that's going to be totally integrated with the conversation, and it's going to be awesome.
Sweet.
Because this conversation was awesome.
Same to you.
I most very much enjoyed this. Thank you for talking with me, Elliotte.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't be a stranger. We will have to have more conversations.
We'll have to have more human
Podcast
interactions
or
in the
otherwise.
futures.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
All right.
I had such a great time nerding out with my friend Elliotte. Motion really is the lotion for the aches and pains of life. And what a life it is. You know, if it weren't for his epic parties back in the day, I might not have met the love of my life. What do you think anti-universe Tyler would have done? The world may never know. But thanks for listening. As always, please send any questions, comments, feedback, or just anything else over to lumbertronic@gmail.com. And until next time, keep sharing your story.